The following program deals with a controversial subject. The theories expressed are not the only possible interpretation. Viewers are invited to make a judgment based on all available information.
This is your captain speaking. We are beginning our descent into madness.
Open your mind.
And we are back to another edition of West of the Rockies, the first edition of 2018. I'm really excited to be here. Genevieve, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Of course, looking forward to what will be undoubtedly a very interesting interview.
Definitely. I mean, it's almost like a year after that we had John Captain on the show, and I'm really happy that we're going to get a chance to talk to him tonight. So, Genevieve, take it away.
Well, yes, so as you mentioned, about a year after our first interview on the Tiffany Jenks murder, John S. Captain is back on West of the Rockies to talk to us about the tragic death of his girlfriend and the extraordinary circumstances surrounding her case. For over 4 years now, John has been relentlessly campaigning for justice and exposure of the murder of his girlfriend, Tiffany. 4 years on, however, the media is still brushing facts under the carpet and justice remains to be served. According to the official story, Tiffany bumped into an unfortunate group of strangers one night, willingly drove off with them, and was then shot point blank in the head. Apparently, she had never met or heard of these people before, and according to the police report, it was just an unfortunate case of a fluke killing. This, according to evidence and reports collected, seemed to have happened all within an approximately 20-minute time frame. The case seemed to be an open and shut one for the police, leaving friends and family baffled and angry, of course. It was clear that there was far more to the story than meets the eye, and it didn't take a genius to figure out. John, we're really happy that you're back on the show to talk to us, and I welcome you back onto West Rockies.
Yeah, thank you, Genevieve and Frank. Thank you both for having Tiffany's story on your show.
It's our pleasure. And, you know, ever since, like I mentioned just a minute ago, a year ago, roughly, that we first got a chance to talk and you told us about this case. Are you any closer to finding an answer?
Well, I think that, all of us are learning more and more as time goes by into the, I guess it's your world of the paranormal, if you will. And as the public begins to become aware that there are these entities that are operating in secret in our country, I think that we'll all become closer to really understanding what's going on a day-to-day basis in both the criminal world and in the political world in America. In terms of Tiffany's case, I'm getting new information, at least monthly. From various people that have come forward, both that have spent time in prison with Tiffany's killer, and or people who have known her family, people who have actually been to her house. So a lot of people over time have come forward and given me inside information into her life, as well as the lives of many others who believe to have been victims of MKULTRA mind control program.
So, John, could you perhaps start by giving us a few of the main points regarding the night of Tiffany's murder as released by the official police report and highlight some of the differences between their story and what you believe to be the true and accurate version of events?
Well, most interesting is that all of what I'm telling you is not really my story. It's just what really happened, and it's proven both by my security cameras, the police reports, and so on. But the night that Tiffany was murdered, she came to my house and she told me, they want to kill me. And I had no idea what she was talking about when she said they, and or that she was going to die. She went on to say, and which was in my closed circuit television cameras, I'm not going to die tonight. I'm not going to die tonight. I'm not going to die tonight 3 times as she was looking down and smoking a cigarette. She left my house, and of course, anybody with logic would say, well, why would somebody who knows they're going to be killed leave your house to go die? And I think that's where you begin to start to see a mind control victim unable to stop the action of murder. So she left my house and she went to the bar, And unbeknownst to me, because I didn't have the FOIA request, a public document request, excuse me, Tiffany had told the bartender her life was over and she didn't know what was going to happen to her. And so there were several people she told, including her therapist, of which I got the recordings later. So Tiffany went to the bar on October 8th of 2013, and she told the bartender her life was over. She walked outside anyways to meet her 3 killers who reportedly by the police, they were just there randomly, although they had taken off the serial numbers off the gun that day. And they drove Tiffany away, and some 19 minutes later at Blue Lake Park, which is a 16-minute drive from the bar, they decided they had no other choice but to shoot Tiffany in the head. Now, the public needs to know that the media 100% lied. And I think that once you understand that the media lied and you start to get the true story, like what we're telling tonight, like Tiffany met her killers outside the bar at 1:43 a.m., period. That's what we know by the closed circuit television at the bar, of which, by the way, they will not release to me still, even though it's a closed case. So at 1:43, she meets her killers. At 2:11, they all drive away. And now, as you can imagine, they're driving away together, 3 killers and Tiffany, and we all have to believe that they're happy, happy, happy because they just met, right? That's the story that the police tell. And they take a 16-minute drive to Blue Lake Park, and which left 3 minutes before she was killed. And 2 people reported in their home of hearing the gunshot go off at 2:30 a.m. in the morning. So these people, as reported by the police, became so mad at Tiffany, they had no other choice but to shoot her. And like I said, it was 19 minutes after they left the bar. So if you believe that narrative, I mean, that's just absurd. And taking it one step further, they actually got out of jail already. And so 2 out of the 3 killers of Tiffany are out of jail. That's where I have a problem.
And tell us a little bit about Tiffany, her background and character, and her general state of mind.
Well, that's the thing, too, is that a lot of people, first of all, I believe she was under mind control. But putting that part aside, Tiffany at the time was 34 years old, and she had just quit her job running Bonneville Power Administration's dams, which, for those of you that don't know, they operate the 31 dams on the Columbia River and its tributaries, going to the ocean from Oregon. As a scientist, she ran the dams for the government, and she had quit about 8 months prior to me meeting her. There's reasons why she felt she had to quit. But she believed that she was a mind control victim, and she was sharing that with many people, including, in some form, me and her therapist. But Tiffany, basically, she drank alcohol and she took pills from her prescription, which was all pathetically crazy prescriptions from the doctor. But more importantly is that she feared she was going to be killed. Now, when the court case came about, nobody ever said anything about that she knew she was going to die. And in fact, once they had the court case, they never mentioned that I said she told me she was going to die, or that she told the bartender she was going to die. And so, it all ties together like that.
John, I wanted to ask you about a video you published on your Facebook page. And for anybody that's interested in following this case closely, I definitely encourage people to send John a friend request there on Facebook under John S. Captain, because it's a great place to stay up to date with John's struggle to bring justice to this case. But I wanted to ask you about a video you published. I think it was on Christmas Eve or maybe December 23rd, and it's a video of Tiffany. And in the video, we see a visibly distraught young woman. And I wanted to ask you to give us a little bit of context. What was happening? Why did you choose to record that conversation with Tiffany? And did you have this video in your possession the whole time? And if so, why did you choose to release it when you did?
Well, I mean, I have probably 10 videos of me and Tiffany talking. We were both recording our lives. With the advent of the iPad, many people are now recording themselves, couples and whatnot. If they're not, I highly recommend they do, because you never know what's going to happen in life. But that particular video, I believe, was about 10 minutes long, that's one of like possibly 10 total videos that I had of her entire life. We were recording our lives, talking about life. I believe that she really encouraged me to record, and she said in the recording, talk more about the future. And so to me, I believed she knew she was marked for death even then. And in her writings to me many times, she said many things that would lead someone to believe that she was going to die. Now, some people call it spiritual enlightenment / manifest destiny or other types of words. But the bottom line was that I didn't understand any of this stuff at all. I didn't understand how it was that after Tiffany died, her family drove her dead body back 5 hours in their car to their home to get cremated. So all of the stuff that I was subjected to, both just prior to her murder and after, I had no clue what I was in for or what was going on. And I was actually seeking help from others to try to understand, why is her doctor talking to her about getting shot? And then 4 days later, she was shot, and absolutely nobody cared. And see, I was just a general, I guess I want to say, like, I didn't have any understanding of the occult world or that the police are crooked. So as I was taking these clues to the police, nothing was being done. And so I think that most importantly, I had a pile of evidence about her murder early on, but nobody cared. And so that was what led me to begin the investigation into Tiffany Jenks' murder. And also, I'd like to say on the Facebook page, they can go to Tiffany Jenks' murder Facebook page too, if they want to learn or read more about her case.
Let me ask you about another aspect of the video that was quite telling, in my opinion. That's when you and Tiffany began to discuss her medication, and you started reading out loud like a prescription, like something written on a medical note, which is very poorly written. And I think that's one of the things that stood out to me. In your opinion, was it helping at all, or do you think it just pushed her further down this spiral?
Well, looking back, and I'm no doctor, but the general public probably could come to the same conclusion I did. They were absolutely trying to kill her, without a doubt. They wanted her dead. And not only was she suicidal prior to me meeting her, not only was she on hundreds of pills, but she had a total of $192,000 worth of medical in the 12 months prior to me meeting her. Okay. And this was like 10 trips of suicide attempts to the hospital before I met her. And in all of the pills that she took, it said, do not take if you're suicidal, and do not take if you drink. Now, when I met her, drove her to her doctor, I think twice. And both times, I believe she was drinking. So the doctor clearly knew she had an alcohol problem. And in fact, he prescribed her later after we met, because I didn't want to take her with me on vacation until which time she had been clean and sober. But they had prescribed her Antabuse. So the doctors were very aware of the issue with her, abuse of alcohol and substances, the pills and whatnot.
One of the things that I read on your Facebook page is that you said that Tiffany drank so they could not control her. Tell me a little bit about, when the term MKULTRA and the term like mind control began to pop up with Tiffany's case. Well, and can you explain a little bit, why was the drinking a way for her not to be under mind control?
Yeah, well, many people that report to be under mind control have said the same thing, which is that drinking makes it to where they are not controllable. I mean, if anybody's had a relationship with a drunk, you would know they can't do anything that a normal person does when drunk. So that's why you can't drive a car when you're drunk. And so somehow it's a glitch in the MKUltra or mind control programming. But with Tiffany, every single thing, even prior to the death, was leading to an idea that something was wrong. And in fact, in the video that you saw there, Frank, behind her head, in the video that I made, you will see an ABC. And I asked her to look at that and to read it at one point in the video.
Right.
And she says, oh, you want me to look at this? And I go, I don't want you to. It's just funny. And I said, who are you? A, B, or C? Which person were you? All the people that are involved in this mind control programming have very unique traits about them that, I won't get into all of them. But some of them is that they're missing time. They disappear all the time. They absolutely have these uncontrollable freakouts after using the telephone, which all of this, I didn't understand what it was, what was going on. I just knew something was wrong with Tiffany. And it didn't take me long, especially after she was killed, to see that this was an entire cover-up by the police, by the media, and in terms of not only her death, but the fact that these people were actually hiding all the truths about her personal life. And I didn't quite understand why. And then it was about 8 months after her death that I ran into who you both know as Clyde Lewis, and he has Ground Zero in Portland radio show. And I met Clyde, and I played for him some recordings that I had gotten in my investigation into Tiffany's murder. And in these recordings, which meant nothing to me, the therapist can be heard talking about dark forces and her getting shot if she tells anybody about this stuff. And in fact, in one part of the recording that I just released recently, which was the last part I had transcribed, the doctor actually says, "You'll get the answers when you die." And then she was dead 4 days later.
Wow.
I had submitted or tried to submit to the state of Oregon several times. And these are some of the things that the public should actually be outraged about. I have information about a therapist that is abusing clients without a question. And I didn't tell you guys this, but recently I submitted this to the teacher for the FBI. And he teaches them when someone's lying or when someone's involved in crimes, detection of some sort. And I got his reports back, and everything he said was, this is the worst he's ever seen, and this guy belongs in jail.
Wow, that's incredible.
I want to ask you, because obviously in your quest to find justice, it seems like you are obviously getting a lot of pushback from different places, not just Tiffany's family, but judging by some of your updates on Facebook, even your own family. What is happening there?
Well, I wouldn't say I would say it's my sister. Why? She doesn't believe in conspiracy theories. She doesn't believe in mind control. She doesn't believe in MKUltra. She doesn't believe in going to CAA.org and typing in MKUltra. If you tried to explain to me prior to Tiffany's death that MKUltra was real, I probably would have done the same thing. And so when you have smiley people, all happy, if you look at the people fighting me, not my sister, but people that are actually on the other side of this case, they are so nice and so good to tell you that that's crazy, that's crazy, that's crazy. So what they're really saying is, Tiffany just randomly got shot that night, and the people didn't hear the gunshot, the same gun that they removed the serial numbers from that day, the same gun that they bought on a promissory note 2 minutes before the death. And you begin to wonder, well, what is the truth here? Of course, my sister doesn't have an understanding of MKUltra or mind control because she didn't type it in. And if anybody wants to learn about MKUltra or mind control, Tiffany's case is an excellent example of it because, as you well know, her job was actually running the dams for the government. And so here you have a high-level person working at a high-level job within the U.S. government, and what it really comes down to is, do you believe her murder was random? And I never will be convinced that it was random. And in fact, she even recorded her killers prior to her murder. And so why does my sister not support the concept? Because there are other people that are really nice to her, telling her, John's crazy.
I know you mentioned a cult that is the one that seems to be interfering with your attempts to find justice. Are these the people you're referring to that maybe are telling her that you are crazy? Yeah,
sure. I would say, of course.
As I mentioned at the top of the show, we interviewed you about a year ago, and that interview in that year has racked up close to 25,000 views. A lot of people have had a chance to listen to you put this case forward and some of like the inconsistencies. And it seems to be resonating with some people. Some people left comments saying that they themselves were victims of mind control. At the same time, there's people there making some serious accusations about you. What do you have to say to some of these people? Do you know who they are? Are these people that you have interacted with at any point?
Well, I think that it's a huge, huge learning curve. And anybody that ever fought the occult world or understands cults or Illuminati or New World Order, they understand that if you go up against this group, you're under attack, or you personally getting contacted. So the trolls or smear campaigns that these people put forth is huge. I think if you look at the Scientology and the aftermath, those people said they had hundreds and hundreds of websites to fight them back. And so is it a surprise to me that some people don't want the truth told about Tiffany Jenks' murder? Absolutely. And so what they do, and there's hundreds of things that they do, and I've kind of kept track and shared them with some other people who are under attack as well. And we've talked about the different angles that they take. But one of the things is they create hundreds of fake accounts, and they have conversations with themselves about how awful or how great, depending on which side they're, which side they're attacking.
Right.
How awful I am as a person, as a business owner, as a boyfriend, as everything from I'm fat to I'm stupid to I can't speak right or I can't write right. I have poor English. It doesn't matter what it is. All they want to do is create a negative thought in your brain, so eventually you think negative about yourself. That doesn't work with me. Okay, I've been in business my whole life, and I don't care what anybody else thinks. And all I know is I'm bringing forth the truth. Now, do these people have an agenda? Yes. They don't want to talk about the murder. Of course not. They want to talk about, oh, John this or John that. It doesn't affect me at all. But why do they do it? Because they're supporting the killers. There were at least 8 people involved in Tiffany's murder. I have the video to prove it. The police will not release the video. Now, so imagine this. I'm fighting the cult, which is 5,000 people. The courts, I'm saying the courts were corrupt. I'm saying the police were corrupt. So now, when you have killers that you're trying to put in prison, the police you're trying to say are corrupt, and the courts you're trying to say are corrupt, you have a lot of people fighting against you.
It definitely seems like an uphill battle. Is that why you mentioned on your Facebook page that Tiffany's murder is a 3-state murder cover-up? How did the other states come in?
Well, prior to killing Tiffany, Daniel Brunell, her shooter, left California and headed on a bus or rideshare with Joshua Robinette, who were both charged in her murder. And they headed up to Portland to kill Tiffany. And Michelle Warden-Brosey, who was also involved, left Washington to go to Portland. So then the 3 of them met up in Portland just hours before they shot Tiffany, and they headed to the bar to meet Tiffany nearly the exact same time that Tiffany headed to the bar, and randomly, according to police, met Tiffany outside the bar while they had a gun in their possession that they just removed the serial numbers from that day. And then they drove to murder Tiffany, and some 19 minutes later, shot her. And then the same day they shot Tiffany, Daniel Brunell goes back to Oakland, California, and Michelle and Josh ran off to Kelso, Washington to hide out in a hotel. I would like to say, too, that after murdering Tiffany, this is how you know it's really ridiculous. I mean, I shouldn't say worse, equally as bad as the murder. After they killed Tiffany, they molested a 9-year-old girl, which was Michelle's daughter. And Josh was actually charged for that crime. So pedophilia, the occult world, all this corruption that we see going on in America right now is absolutely absurd. And I think that America is really waking up to this entire group of people who are really ruining America. And for those people who have ever had a penalty or a fine from the courts, like maybe a parking ticket, I want to say Tiffany's killers, Michelle and Josh, received a $200 fine for their part in her murder. So if that's not absurd, now taxpayers spent $500,000, bringing the case to trial.
Right.
The killers, Michelle and Josh, got a $200 fine in the courts and a 13-month prison sentence for the murder of Tiffany Jenks, or their part of the murder.
It really boggles my mind. Obviously, I know that laws are different from state to state. However, one would imagine that in a case such as this, the punishment would be a bit more fitting to the crime. And I can totally sympathize with you and feeling that justice has not been served.
Just to clarify for the people in the chat, they're asking what action of hers triggered her unfortunate demise. And I mean, for me, in summary, it was basically that she was trying to get out of her situation. But could you maybe give us just more details just so the audience really understands?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, all of this was, I didn't understand any of what was going on at the time. I was living this life in real time, but it's like I was confused. And I hadn't seen Tiffany for 60 days. I believe they were grooming her for her upcoming death via mind control. I believe that based on the recordings that I ended up, and I keep talking about these recordings, I want to make clear, Tiffany had my cell phone, and I think that technology had caught up with the Illuminati. So if you were to go to YouTube right now and type in Tiffany Jenks therapist, you will be able to see various recordings that I've transcribed into real-time audio transcriptions and in a video. And what you'll see there is that she's convinced that they're going to kill her. See? And so when I got the information, it was like, new to me. I didn't understand when the night she died, why she said she was going to be killed. But what's key to this therapist talks is that he's very aware of all this stuff, and he's talking in occult terms. He's talking in, dark angels or, those sort of things. So Tiffany knew that she was marked for death. And basically, I believe she came to my house to set me up on the murder, not because she wanted to, but because that's the way it works in that Illuminati murder world. She walked to the bar from the hotel she stayed at, and she told the bartender, and I'm going to read from you right from the police report here, okay? I want to read something. This is from the arrest warrant for the killers. It says, talking about the bartender, Mr. Newland said he had Tiffany sit near the end of the bar, close to the door, and he held a conversation with her. In the conversation, the victim said it may be the end of her life, and she's not sure what was going to happen to her. Now, that one paragraph or one sentence line in this 9-page arrest warrant for the killers is the most important words, because it's not related to me, see? I mean, Frank and Genevieve, listen, this is not my words, right?
Right.
This is the words of the police. And so if you have a third party that has no relation to me at all, I've never met him, and I didn't even know this existed until I got my FOIA request filled. But in this recording, in this paperwork, he's telling the police that she told him she was going to die, right?
Right.
He says it right there. My life is over and I'm not sure what's going to happen. So why is that only one paragraph? And then there's 9 other pages about John Captain and his business, or John Captain and his tags on his car. I mean, the whole entire arrest warrant there's no truth in it. Why was the bartender aware that she was going to die, and why did she walk outside to go die?
Well, and why wasn't that really taken into account during the case? It seems like that they thought it was not even worth mentioning or, highlighting, which is, I think, the most bizarre part.
Yeah.
Well, if you take into account, I knew she told me she was going to die, and I thought she meant mostly from drinking. I didn't really, at the time, quite understand what she was talking about, and I didn't think she would be killed. And then second of all, you have the therapist who's talking about her dying. In fact, he was pro-die. And when I had the analyzation done of her words with the therapist, the analyst, which his name is Peter Wyatt, he said it was the worst case he'd ever seen. And so when you have third-party confirmations that are unrelated to me telling you the same story, of course the bartender should have been a prime candidate for the court case, right? But he wasn't even listed as a witness in the murder. And in fact, the public should be outraged because there was no trial. There was no evidence brought forward. There was no jury. All there was these people pled out and got away with murder. How can Tiffany's killers get 13 months in jail and a $200 fine for their part of the murder? That's the part where the public should say, you know what? I've gotten a parking ticket worth more than that. That cost me more than that. Or a speeding ticket.
Let's backtrack a little and speculate about how someone ends up in a world like this, in a situation of mind control.
Well, I think that you have probably millions of people in America that are under mind control. And I'm not here to talk politics, but it appears they pop up in the weird, strangest times. But after Tiffany's death, they had actually sent to me 8 other mind control victims to try to guide my investigation, if you will. Only words they said to me was, "That's crazy, that's crazy, that's crazy," to try to stop me from investigating Tiffany's case. Mm-hmm. And so if Portland, Oregon has, I would have to believe, hundreds of mind control victims readily available for any of these little agendas, you have to wonder, if it's true that MKUltra is real and mind control is real, then was the Las Vegas shooting a mind control victim, or was Tiffany's job at the dams more seriously overlooked than the public needs? I guess I'm trying to say is the public needs to be aware that this stuff is real. And my whole point about the entire case is not even about the murder as much as it is, why is a mind control victim running our dams? And even the idea that she was unstable, that's all the more reason the FBI should have investigated her murder. Her family sent her to the psycho ward in 2007. She ran the dams after 2007, and that's one of the most highly classified, or I guess I'm not sure the right wording here, but highly classified jobs in the world you can have. She actually moved the levers of the dam up and down. Okay, that was her job. And, you know, you asked me why it is that people are trying to stop me from telling the truth. Very simple. Mind control victim, running the country's dams. That's all you need to know. If it's true what I'm telling you, we're in trouble.
It's definitely alarming. Yeah, just the prospect of it.
Yeah, and it doesn't take a genius to figure out that, you know, it's in the government's advantage to have controllable people in high up places because, you know, they've got their fingers in all of the pies, basically, if they've got control over every aspect of the country.
Many people have reported to me, I mean, John, think about what they could have done with the dams. I mean, I'm not here trying to promote it. I'm here trying to stop it.
Right.
So what could they have done with the dams? I don't know. Ask the people in Texas. But there's also a lady, Denise, who has put up a YouTube channel that's nice. It's called When the Dam Breaks by Tiffany Jenks, When the Dam Breaks. And she talks not only, but primarily about the issues of the dams. And it's all about Tiffany's job. And so some people might find that fascinating to really dive into that whole conversation. But, you know, I think with Tiffany's life, and by the way, her birthday is coming up on the 19th, so it's really, she would have been 40 here on January 19th. But as you begin to look into her life, all you have to ask yourself is this: did she die the way the police claim? And if you believe that, and I want to say the media did lie, but even if you watch what the media claims to be true, you still can't believe the story.
It's definitely, I can hear in your voice the frustration of running into so many obstacles. John, we're going to take a quick break. It's a bit past the top of the hour, but we'll take a short break. And when we come back, we got some more questions to ask you. I wanted to ask you about some of the police involvement and some of the people that you came in touch with before and shortly after the unfortunate events that led to Tiffany's death. So would you be so kind to just hang on the line for us? And when we come back, we'll talk about this and a few other things.
Yes, sounds good.
Awesome. And we're here with John Captain. In this case, here we are a year after, and there's definitely more information, but I feel like the adversity and the obstacles for John and everyone that wants to see justice served, it's definitely, the fight is definitely not an easy one. We're going to take a quick break here. Like I said, we're going to go out with a song. Well, I haven't heard this song in a while, but this is from the Drive soundtrack, which was a pretty cool movie. This one's called Night Call by Kaminsky and Love Fox. This is West of the Rockies on the Independent FM. WTRradio.com is the website. I'm joined by Genevieve. I'm Frank, and our guest tonight is John Captain. Don't go away. We're going to be right back.
West of the Rockies with Frank.
Open your mind.
And we're back to the second half of West of the Rockies. I'm Frank. Thank you guys for sticking around. I know it's late, but man, we're over here all fair. Genevieve and I really like discussing this whole situation because it's definitely perplexing. It's definitely
more than perplexing. And yeah,
I guess that's an understatement.
It's perplexing and infuriating when you know that people who are meant to be doing their job, law, police force, they're not doing their job, apparently.
Really quick, you just heard Night Call by Kavinsky and Low Fox. That's from the Drive soundtrack. And we also heard a little bit of David Bowie on the, I think we're really close to the anniversary of his passing as well. And that was Modern Love, one of my favorite David Bowie tunes, that's for sure. As always, I'm Engineer Frank on Twitter, West of the Rockies on Facebook. You can follow the show on Twitter at WOTR, followed by the word radio on Twitter, and check out the website, WOTRradio.com. You can also subscribe to the YouTube. If you dig the show, that's one sure way to support us. Go ahead and subscribe. And I'm joined by Genevieve, and you can find her here, every Thursday night, new time as well, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., hosting her very own show, No Added Flavors, music, fun facts, jokes, and a whole lot more. You definitely don't want to miss that. And you can find her on Twitter at Genevieve Uway. You can Google it, because if you don't know how to spell it, it's always tricky. YUXYZ or something. Our guest tonight is Mr. John Captain. And he's bringing us up to speed and everything that's been going on with this quest for justice in the case of Tiffany Jenks. And I'm going to bring John Captain back on the line. John, can you hear us all right?
Yes.
Can you tell folks one more time where they can find more information on Tiffany Jenks and your efforts to bring justice to the case? What websites, what Facebooks, and all that?
Facebook is John S. Captain, Captain, just like it sounds, and also Tiffany Jenks Murder on Facebook. In addition to that, www.programmedtodie.com, with 2 M's, by the way, Programmed to Die. Which that site is actually a collection of mind control victims and or cases that will bring light to the subject. And then www.tiffanyjenksmurder. And Jenks is Jenks, jenksmurder.com. So those are the sites that I have right now. And, you know, it's important to note that this is not my job. I'm not a presenter of information. I'm not a radio talk show host or a news broadcaster. I'm just me. So a lot of what I have accomplished is just me trying my best to bring light to the subject. It's not my perfection. So if some of it seems disjointed or screwed up or not perfect, well, so be it.
I must say that you have tirelessly crusaded for Tiffany Jenks, and I've seen just how many people you have reached with your plight for justice. You have spoken to Clyde Lewis of Ground Zero Radio and David Icke as well. What is one of the most eye-opening, mind-blowing things that you have discovered as you've gone down this rabbit hole of mind control and cults and conspiracies?
Well, it's quite odd because I want the public to just put yourself in my shoes and just think, okay, so your loved one was murdered. What do you do? What do you do now? What's the first step? Well, like any normal person, you would rely on the police. I think that especially when you're distraught, I've never known anybody to die, especially not from murder. My grandparents was the first someone passing away. But if you've never been involved in any crime like this, you would rely on the police. When I did, I was dumbfounded to find out that the only reason they were actually asking me what I knew was so they could figure out a way to stop me. And I see that now that I've gotten just a few of the public document requests filled that I've requested. And by the way, the police will not give me what I've asked for still, and the public should be outraged about that as well. Because what this is really about is there's this guy, me, trying to get killers, them, in jail. This is not like, I'm not trying to, build a house or do some law change or I'm just simply saying, I have proof her killers are not in jail and I want to get them in jail. How do I do that? I don't know. And so as you turn to your police, which is where you're instructed to go to, it's odd that they didn't care. And so I just posted just now, and people can find it on Facebook if they just go to John S. Captain on Facebook, or they can actually go to YouTube and type in Tiffany Jenks crying for help. That is probably the most disturbing audio out of all of it, is a voicemail from her hours before she was murdered. And none of that ended up in the court case because they didn't have one. And I want to say that the killer, one of the killers, which is named Joshua Robinette, who was also charged with the child molestation after murdering Tiffany. But I have audio of him talking to Tiffany that I got because she had my cell phone. And if I provide the audio to the police and I say, Tiffany knew her killer, then that's now, premeditated murder, right? Now it's no longer just some random killing that night. And so that's my whole point. My whole point of this case is that killers are on the loose in Portland. And while at the same time people are talking about gun laws, I don't even want to have that discussion with anyone because known killers are on the street. And here's what's odd. These people didn't even lose their right to own a gun, Michelle and Josh. They weren't even charged with a felony. I don't even believe they took their guns away. And they were the known killers. So what do I do when the police don't tell the truth? What do I do? At first, I went to her family. And then finally, they got a restraining order against me because they didn't want to hear the truth either. I wonder why. And then, and so I had like 100 clues to this murder by the time I was done. And all the documents that I got from the government by FOIA requests only proved that I was telling the truth. I mean, if you read which I sent to you guys a copy quite late today, but if you just take the police report and it says that the bartender that night said, Tiffany said her life was over. How can that not be a clue in the murder? Right. The bartender knew she was going to die. And so those kinds of very basic clues were all covered up. And that's the problem. I don't understand why. And the public should not understand why either. But what they should do is say, why are killers on the streets? What's the purpose? Why are the police wanting these killers on our streets?
I think another huge piece of evidence that they don't really seem to be taking into account, or that they certainly brush on the carpet, is that there is, in fact, evidence that she knew the killers before. Tell us a little bit about that recording with Josh, and I can't recall if there were other people present as well, but it seems like, she has spoken to him before, and in a very familiar way at that even.
Yeah, correct. In the recording, key things, and also people can go to YouTube and just type in Tiffany Jenks Josh or Joshua, either way, and they can hear the recordings themselves. But this is why the police never released any audio from any of the three killers. This is why they refused to release the video from Tiffany at the bar that night. Because, okay, let's talk about the audio. I have proof that Tiffany knew Josh. She recorded him. She was fearful for her life. And she told the therapist she was fearful for her life. Okay, so the police won't release any audio of that killer, Joshua Robinette. Another step, okay, because if they do, that's conspiracy to commit murder, right? That's right. All you need to prove. If I only can prove one single thing, all I need to prove is she knew she was going to die, and the whole story is blown out of the water. And so the second thing that the public should find interesting, the police will not release the video of Tiffany at the bar prior to her death. Why? Because I have video of the killer walking around and around my store the night Tiffany was at my house on my closed-circuit television cameras. So just to be clear, I have video of the killer circling the block hours before Tiffany was murdered, and he doesn't have any facial hair. So if you look at the killer, and I know this for sure, if you look at the police Tiffany Jenks murder killer, which is Daniel Burnell, he has facial hair. In the actual night he killed Tiffany, he didn't have any facial hair. The police used that to throw me off, but I got I just knew it was him. I saw him walking around my store. And so I presented this stuff to the police, right? The video, they didn't want anything to do with it. They didn't take any copies of any single part of this murder. Nothing. Not the audio, not the written stuff. Tiffany wrote to me. She texted me. She called me. She did everything possible to let me know they were going to kill her, and the police didn't want any of it. Now, that's corruption.
And how far did it get? Did they even look at it? Did they even listen to any of it? Or did they rule it out before even laying eyes on it?
Well, based on the FOIA request that I received later, you can see they had an agenda. And the agenda was to get these two people, Michelle and Josh, off the murder case so that they can do their tasks again. They are definitely, in my opinion only, MKUltra mind control victims as well. And even Michelle Warden-Brosie's aunt told me that she's involved in the Eastern Star, part of the, one of the cults there.
Oh, yeah, the Order of the Eastern Star, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And if you don't understand any of the occult world, Tiffany Jenks' case is just one of those where you go, okay, so you're just saying she's a drunk and she lost her way and met bad people who had a gun, who took off the serial numbers hours before the shooting, came from California, shot her in the head, left her there for dead, didn't know why she wasn't in the car for the ride home because they didn't hear the gun go off, the same gun they sold to the shooter 10 minutes before the murder on a promissory note. And I love this one too. The police said, there's no direct threat to the public, but we don't know who the killers are yet. That's weird.
Wow.
I mean, every single thing they said, no one could possibly believe. No one. And it all comes down to this. Do you believe the narrative that our government is telling us about these different incidences, like Las Vegas or Tiffany's case, and so you start to add them all up, and then you become a David Icke. You start to say, well, the whole government's corrupt. And I truly and honestly believe in my heart that 100% of the government is corrupt. And the reason why? Because nobody steps forward and says, you know what, John? We don't want killers on our street to kill again. So we're going to take your evidence and we're going to see where it lies. But they don't do that, right? They all protect each other. And so this case is the one case that can really change everything for everybody because it proves that mind control is real. She ran the dams. They don't want anybody to know the truth, and they're going to do anything they can to shut me up.
And we've got, a few interesting contributions in the chat, and the people contributing, I believe, are correct. They destroyed her image as they always do. And that indeed seems to be one of the number one tactics used by, those higher up. Destroy someone's image first so that their death seems, insignificant or maybe even justified.
Yeah, 100%. And it's so sad, but that person knows, they know. And that's a heart-filled comment. And I'll tell you what, it disgusts me to read the emails I received from Tiffany's mother, calling her a prostitute, calling her a loser, calling her a drunk, calling her a liar, all of this after she was dead. And I kept replying, what are you talking about? But, that person that made that comment online understands, right? But America as a whole right now is so busy working hard, they don't understand what's really going on in America. And I was one of them. I didn't understand either. And so I'm very hopeful that more people like the person that just commented come forward and talk about Tiffany's case because, yeah, she was made a bad person, and that irks me to no end. My sister said the reason Tiffany's dead is because she lost her way and she was a drunk. And that's so offensive to me.
Yeah, it's extremely dismissive.
It's so insensitive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I just want to say that, yeah, indeed, you sent us over some documents, and I can see here, including one where it says that you won in the Court of Appeals to tell your story, because I know, as we talked about, in the first half of the show, you have encountered a lot of adversity trying to just merely even just tell your story, on a platform like Facebook. But let me ask you this. You mentioned that some cops confided in you that they were told to stand down and not to help you. And obviously, that just adds a lot of credibility to this theory that there is corruption going on and there is a cover-up going on. Can you tell me a little bit about this incident? Did these cops approach you, or was this while you were trying to reach out to people for help?
Yeah. What I ran across is that I had several things that I needed to get reported to the police, both in crimes that were being committed against me, somebody had stolen from me, and also in submitting evidence in her murder. I kept getting referred back to the corrupt Fairview, Oregon police, which only has like 10 police total. And so became friends with one officer whom I met basically one time when Tiffany called the police, and he came back and talked to me about it, said he was sorry that Tiffany died, and he was really nice. He was Portland police officer Higginbotham. And as I wanted to get help in her case, and I have the call recorded because I'm from Oregon, I can do that legally. Thank you very much. But in the recording that I made with talking to Officer Higginbotham, he specifically said he was told to stand down and not help me. That was his words to me.
Wow.
And so, and he's probably been the only honest one. They did everything they can to stop me, including trying to, they sent 4 cops one day to make me crazy. But my police officer friend happened to be there that day, one that's unrelated to this situation. And he was a 22-year LAPD and Portland Police Department named Robert Shire. And he was there. Otherwise, after they left, he goes, John, they were here to arrest you. I'm like, arrest me for what? Oh, they're just trying to shut you up. And I go, you've got to be kidding me. So they left. And it wasn't more than 4 months later that my friend Robert Shire, like I said, he ended up dead. So I believe it's related to my case as well. But, that has to be investigated separately. But he went to the hospital and for some kind of minor something or another, and then ended up calling his wife several times saying, make them stop, they're killing me. And then he ended up dead. So wow. When you're fighting what I believe to be the Illuminati / New World Order, they will do anything possible to stop you, including befriend your sister, your friends, send people into your life, other mind control victims to be honeypots, or, ruin your business. I got sued at my business. So, if you're not under attack, it's no problem. You can fight all you want. But when you're under attack like I am, I have no choice but to do things a certain way. Now, in terms of the Court of Appeals, which people can go to the Oregon Court of Appeals website and just type in versus John S. Captain, I was refrained from talking about the case illegally, and they got a restraining order to stop me. See, because once they found out I had all the clues, they were no longer nice to me. Up until that point, they were, oh, John, don't worry. The police are working on this case, not to fear, da-da-da-da-da. That's all a lie. And to the untrained eye or to the person that didn't have any clue about murder, sure, you would want to believe that. But I knew something was wrong when the police didn't want copies of my evidence. And so, each step along the way was a learning curve for me in dealing with crooked police, crooked government. And I think it's really sad because all these killings and shootings that are going on in America, that you think that the police would want the killers off the street and at least the guns that kill people.
We were just sitting here kind of looking at each other at just how this case just has so many twists and turns. Let me ask you about something that you referenced early on, and you just referenced, just now. They send people, as you said, into your life. One of the things I kind of saved here because I wanted to ask you about, I saved one of your posts on Facebook. You said, if I met you 4 months before or 4 months after Tiffany died, 99% chance you are a mind control victim. How did you arrive to that conclusion? What gave you that eye-opening insight?
Well, basically, for instance, we'll take one person that uses the name Drew. It's not her real name, but let's just use that one as an example. I met her 4 or 5 months after the murder and at Goodwill, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, I didn't know her, never met her until the time in which I met her at the Goodwill store, okay? So here I'm reviewing the closed-circuit television cameras of my store the night Tiffany died, and I'm like, Drew, and she's in my office, right? Mm-hmm. She's like a honeypot girl that, is definitely a mind control victim. But she's like, that's not me. I'm like, that is you. You're wearing the same boots you had on before. And in fact, if you go to YouTube and you type in Tiffany Jenks Drew, you will see the video of her. Now, her boyfriend who's walking with her, his name goes by the name of Biko. By the way, all these mind control victims, they have code names. So he says to me one day, where's Drew? And I text him a video and he goes, yeah, that's me. Where did you get that? And I go, that's you and Drew walking by my store the night Tiffany was set up to die. And so here Drew had been sent into my life, and I have her on video the night Tiffany died. And when I confronted her, was about 6 months after I met her or so, then all of a sudden she disappears, right? She's no longer working on the case. But the only thing she really did was steal all my documents and create this false narrative in my mind. Oh, John, you're crazy. You're crazy. I said, this is Tiffany crying for help on a voicemail. How is that me being crazy that she knew she was going to die or so on? And so I got all these people that were in my life, right? Like there's another one if you type in Tiffany Jenks and Jeffrey. This is Jeffrey walking by my store with Michelle Warden-Brosey, the killer, on YouTube the night Tiffany died. And so I have all these videos, right? But I didn't know these people. And all these people just magically came into my life. By the way, Jeffrey is the ex-district attorney for Multnomah County. And he's walking by my store with Michelle Warren Brosey. And so as I was learning and meeting these people, like right now, I wouldn't have, say, Frank on my video.
Right.
If I met you, why would you be on my video? And then you came into my life. And so all of these people are interrelated in terms of their occult beliefs. And sure, they sent 10 mind control victims to assess what I was doing, honeypot me, keep me distracted, and to make sure what clues I really had so they could report back to the police. See, because everything up until the date they got the killers off of murder charges, they were in full control of because they knew what I knew. I didn't know that when I was telling the police they were actually trying to block me. I thought they were there to help me, but they weren't. So they did the first investigation, the police did, where they lied. And by the way, if you look over these documents here, this arrest warrant, it's all about me. I'm not the one that got arrested. This is supposed to be about the killers. And
Right.
not a single word about the killers is in this stuff. In 13 pages. And so you start to see a narrative where you can't have it always. You can't not give us the video from the bar the night she died. You can't not give us the audio from the killers. You can't not get the killers on murder. You can't not, these people said they didn't hear the gun go off. You've got to be joking, right? Who would believe that?
And again, for the people in the chat, could you recap, please, for how long did you know Tiffany before she was murdered?
I met her in September of 2012. She died October of 2013. So was it about a year or something?
Yeah.
And basically, I was 100% set up on her murder. And here's the thing. Since I was never charged, what's my avenue? I can hire lawyers to fight my case, to get the police in trouble for setting me up on this murder. But anybody who likes to investigate this stuff can read the documents. And I need to put them online still. But basically, it's very clear that I was set up. That's why she came to my house that night. I hadn't seen her in 60 days. And it goes right in line with what the MKULTRA mind control victim will do. They'll set up anybody. And if you listen to the recordings that I got after Tiffany's death, especially the ones with the therapist, she was 100% in love. And he was telling her over and over and over, whatever this guy tells you, disregard, don't talk to him. It doesn't mean anything. And she says, how can you say that? He can save the world.
And to what extent do you feel that you were a pawn in this whole plot? And what are the chances that they were targeting you in maybe some other nefarious ways as well? If they were successful, do you think they could have possibly even partially mind controlled you and made you believe you contributed to a murder? How far did and could this have gone?
Yeah, good question. First of all, I don't believe that anybody could mind control me because I have ADHD, dyslexia, and I'm completely out of control. So I don't think anybody can mind control me. But I'm not putting mind control victims down. I'm more saying that they're smarter than me, and it takes a smart person to be a mind control victim, not a dumb person, by the way. And I think people really need to know that. And I'm not smart when it comes to taking orders or listening or I'm not saying that plays a role in mind control. These people are taken from birth. They're raped, tortured, and abused. And do I think I was set up 100%? I think that they wanted to steal my business because one of the gentlemen that entered my life just before the murder is a guy named Bill. And he also is this is all weird, by the way, he is also the hearse driver and best friends with the toxicologist, or whatever you call the guy that does that, the coroner's office.
Mm-hmm.
And he works with Michelle Warren Brosey, who dressed dead people at the morgue. And that's the reference Tiffany made to these vampires want to kill her. And so you have all these interleaved people. By the way, I believe Bill he started working for my business and helping my business. And then this was just months before Tiffany's death. And I believe I know he's related to Michelle Warren Brosey, so he has to be related to the case. There are so many of these, I don't know what you want to call them, dark entities or bad people, bad actors involved in this case. And that's why you see this massive amount of people fighting me. I'm trying to get them on murder to make America a better, safer place for other people's children to live in. And they don't want that. They want to get these killers back on the street again. And even the shooter, by the way, I want to say something about him, Daniel Brunel, in his 190-page police report, depositions, he said that Michelle and Josh made their first kill at age 9. That was his words. And so these people are back out on our streets. And I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm saying the shooter even says that these people are horrible.
That's blows my mind. It really does. Now, talking about the people that crossed your path after the unfortunate death of Tiffany, I believe you said somebody from the Tate family of Sharon Tate fame. You had an interaction with a member of that family or something along those lines. Can you tell me a little bit about what was the nature of that interaction and how who this individual was and how you came to meet with them?
Well, there was a guy named JD that is related to Sharon Tate, and I believe him to be also a microphone recruit. And in fact, we've talked about it in depth. I think that all these people are they're all friends. And so one would bring one friend over and, at my business, and we would work or talk or whatever. And then all of a sudden, basically what it comes down to is that they're all friends, but they don't tell you that they're friends. And so a lot of times it's very strange. Like I met the girl at Goodwill, for instance, Drew. And then, Jeffrey, I met from a girl named Tyson because he does legal work, and he told me he would help me with his legal work. So
I know we have mentioned this before, but I think it's always very interesting and important to go over this again. The idea that her psychiatrist was essentially her handler, and for those who don't know what a handler is, it's the person that controls the mind control victim. Like you said, there were recordings made, and in those recordings, there are some things that really stand out, such as his taps and certain phrases that he repeats that are very reminiscent of even very old school MKULTRA mind control techniques. Talk a bit about the following the yellow brick road and the certain pointers that really suggest that he was a handler.
Yeah. Well, the therapist, she recorded him, and he knew she was recording. And basically that's why her iCloud was completely deleted out 2 days before she was murdered, I believe, because he knew she recorded. And it's kind of funny because her family gave me the passwords to get into her accounts and then tried to claim to the courts that I hacked into them. I'm like, yeah, because you gave me the passwords. Duh. And then so I had the emails about that. So that was just a big lie. But the therapist's words at the time when I got them didn't mean anything to me. I was just reporting all what I got to the police and to her family. But as they were getting more and more of the information that I was getting, it became clear that they were going to try and stop me as opposed to help me. But during the time in which the therapist was talking to Tiffany, he talked about things like Follow the Yellow Brick Road, Dark Angels. And in one part of the recording, which I don't know the exact spot, she actually is falling out and saying, I don't know who you are, and you think you're a dark angel? And she's actually nearly passing out from his mind control tactics. And so, anyways, that's just a bit, but you can type that in on YouTube and just go Tiffany Jenks therapist.
Let me ask you this, John, because it seems like in the last year or two, this whole subject of MKUltra mind control has kind of taken pop culture by storm, if you will, with shows like Stranger Things and Wormwood and other shows like that. Do you find that people are more receptive now than before?
I think the people that are ignorant to the idea or closed-minded to the concept will be forever. All my conversations lead to this subject, unfortunately. It's key to my existence, and it's key to our survival in America. For people that don't believe in mind control, Tiffany Jenks' life is the prime example of a mind control victim. So please look into it for her life, so it's not a waste. And in terms of me trying to convince other people or them being convinced already, most of the people, which have been in the hundreds and hundreds, have contacted me about their abuse and about their rape and torture as a child. And this goes right in the line with pedophilia. And that's why I like what that lady had asked in the chat was about Tiffany being put down as a human. I mean, after somebody's dead, I don't understand the logic in calling her names. I think there was enough of that from everybody before she died. So I don't really see the point in trying to convince us that Tiffany is a drunk or a bad person. And that's why I find the narrative by the police so offensive, is because they want you to believe that she's so stupid that she lost her way and that's why she's dead. That's a discussion about her. What about the killers? And so there's, in every TV broadcast that was done for the news for Tiffany, you start to see that she's the victim, she's the bad person. She. Nothing about the killers. And in terms of how MKUltra plays into not only her death, but society, I think that people are waking up in the thousands, probably per day or millions per day, that MKUltra is real. It doesn't take a scientist to figure it out. Just go to CIA.gov and type in MKUltra. Once you understand that mind control is real, every single thing in your perception or in your reality will change. Because now when they bring forth a Las Vegas shooting or a Florida airport shooter or some of these other cases, you're going to go, that seems like a mind control victim to me. And one step past that is, once you understand mind control is real, can you imagine Tiffany ran 31 dams in a nuclear power plant as a mind control victim? And it's not my job to teach the public about mind control. The FBI should be knocking at my door, just trying to track me down, right? They should be hunting me to find out what I know about Tiffany and the dams. The FBI should be hunting me down to find out what I know about Tiffany and the dams. And by the way, I have nothing to hide.
I appreciate that you've always been very open to the questions that we ask, which we just feel we need to ask to be fair on both sides. Let me ask you this. I know you've also put out public calls for anybody that may have known Tiffany from childhood, because as I'm sure you've known through your investigations, a lot of these mind control individuals, this is like a generational thing. So, it goes back a few generations. Have you been contacted by anyone that met Tiffany when she was younger that would validate this idea?
Yeah, I've met two people. One that knew her throughout her treatment prior to me meeting her, and then another from her childhood in Burns, Oregon. And I won't really go into details about the things that they've shared with me, but they have been to her. The one girl who lived in Burns had been to Tiffany's house and shared some very troubling issues. But I'm not going to discuss what the lady told me. But it's very clear. In addition to that, I'd like to say Tiffany's father ran Los Alamos Nuclear Laboratory as a head scientist there for nuclear. And so the government connection is there. And I suppose that's why the FBI is not saying, hey, John, how can we help you with this murder case? Because it's all interrelated. They have the power. I'm just a nobody. And on top of it, I can't write that well. So I can't write legal documents, for example. And so here you have this person out here just hanging over the abyss going, what do I do now?
You really have been, pushing this case, and you've also been supporting other people as you're doing this, which in turn, helps Tiffany's case, but is also bringing to light other people's similar situations. And that is via your Program to Die website. Yes, sorry. And for anyone listening, that's programtodie.com. Could you maybe draw some comparisons to the other victims, or highlight one or two in particular, and what sort of characteristics they generally exhibit?
I think that the key to Tiffany's is that she would absolutely freak out after getting a phone call from her family. It was weird. Even when we were in Thailand, I mean, everything started off, oh, I love you, you're the greatest guy in the world, to freaking out, I have to go home, oh my God, I got to leave now. But not just normal freakouts. I mean, somebody might say, well, if you date somebody who drinks, and that comes about often. But even when she was sober, after she would get phone calls, Thanksgiving dinner ended up out on the street. And then she went home and ended up in jail for a month. And nobody went to go visit her. Nobody put money on her books, which was weird. I did, of course, but they did. Her family didn't. And then when she got out of jail, they made her walk But in terms of other mind control victims and the stories that they have told, I think Kathy O'Brien is certainly the biggest, most well-known mind control victim, and sadly her husband just died, Mark Phillips. Both of them have shared their life, and that has changed the world forever. And I've talked to them via email many times, and they can resonate with Tiffany's story. In fact, they gave me some good advice, but I won't get into that. But you know, you look at some of the other cases of mind control victims that have come up over the years, and they all share the similar story. They had problems with their family. They were all raped, tortured, and abused. They were all drug or alcohol induced, and they feared for their lives. And when you calculate all these things together and you say, so John, Tiffany was fearful for her life, and you say, yes. And then she ended up dead, right? Yes. Okay. So do you think it's related? Yes. That's my only point. Now we have to get killers in jail. And so other mind control victims are probably really reluctant to speak out because they look at how I get attacked for helping Tiffany's case. And I mean, you guys have pointed it out. Look at the attacks online. I don't care. They don't bother me. I don't care that they sued my business and ruined it. I don't care that they, I don't care what they do. I'm going to tell my story no matter what. Other mind control victims, Kathy O'Brien, for example, she had to go into the witness protection program just to survive. And I mean, that's really pathetic. And that involved the Clintons, by the way, for those of you that follow that whole narrative.
Right.
But mind control victims are coming out of the woodwork like crazy. And actually woodwork, that's funny, but Wormwood, Frank Olson and Eric Olson, the son of Frank Olson, is a great story for people to watch on Netflix that talks about the beginnings of what is known now as MKULTRA / Monarch mind control programming. And one note that I might add is the killer, Daniel Burnell. He actually said, while we were killing Tiffany, she kept saying her name was David over and over. And he was confused why she said that. And I'm going to tell you why. I was told by other people that understand mind control, because she had a male alter, and her male alter was David. And so she was programmed to die. She had a male alter named David. She was saying her name was David over and over to the killer before he shot her. Why else would a girl say, my name's David?
Just bizarre.
And they're just asking again, what exactly is the show on Netflix called?
Wormwood, I believe.
Wormwood.
Okay. All right. So that was just for...
It's
somebody in the chat, I think, wanted to know.
And
it's a very good show. And I'm extremely thankful for people that don't know right now, that care enough to check into this and to help. Or I'm thankful that other stories like Scientology Aftermath and those sorts of shows are coming out, because it's all interrelated. We are run by a bunch of pedophile occultists in the deep state that are running our government. And I'm trying to say we caught them. With Tiffany's case, we actually caught them red-handed.
It's very interesting how Tiffany's case seems to branch out into all of these different areas that for a lot of people is hard to believe. However, one of the reasons, at least on this show, why we follow pop culture is because I believe that it is through popular culture that the powers that be, if you will, parade some of these concepts in front of us. For the people who are asleep, it might not mean nothing, or it might just be some hypothetical TV show that they're watching. But for the people that they have woken up to this reality, I feel like it's a bit of an insight to what goes on. And one of my favorite movies being Eyes Wide Shut, I feel that it kind of gives you a little peek behind the curtain of a side of society that we don't get to see very often.
Another person that you do mention every now and then is Max Spears. And again, the unfortunate murderer in his case. How much do you know about that? And I think it's important, linking some of these other cases and looking at their parallels, because at least for people listening, it gives Tiffany's case more validation.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. I met Vanessa Bates, Max Spears' mother, in person and talked to her about his case and offered my help to her any way I can. And also, I had been in contact with her via phone shortly after his death because I wanted her to know what to expect when you're under attack from the Illuminati. She is part of, sadly, she's kind of part of the whole occult world. Although she's, desperate to get answers for her son's death, she is very familiar with it and admittedly understands it all. So she knows a lot about the occult world. Now, I told her we need to join forces, and all of us who are under attack trying to tell our story need to get together. And I think that's where the Program to Die page came about, because it's not Tiffany's story. Although Tiffany's story may resonate with a girl that might go to a bar and end up dead, or a girl that might go to a guy that has a girlfriend that ends up dead. It might be one that actually resonates with the general public, but she's not an isolated case. And so what I do find interesting, though, about the Max Spears case is I was contacted by what I will now call trolls that are attacking me online, by the way, some of them, but they were adamant for me not to get a hold of Vanessa and not to work with her in Max Spears' case. And that's another example where I don't listen to anybody. I still went to meet her in London. I still talk to her in depth about the cases. And, she often comments on my posts on Facebook. But I know I can trust her 100% to try to get to the bottom of her son's murder. And I also trust myself that I will get to the bottom of Tiffany's case. And so when these people came into my life that were telling me, hey, John, don't contact, Vanessa. That's just not a good idea. I found that to be very odd. And so that was all the more reason why I did contact her.
Of course, it's one of those things where you just got to follow your better instinct at that point.
And what are some of the, things, at least as far as you can tell us, what are some of the things that his mother mentioned and some of the anomalies she might have noticed about him? Well,
we didn't talk about the mind control part of his life, but we just simply talked about the murder itself and how, his phones came up missing. They didn't search her phones, just like Tiffany's. They didn't search. I mean, get this, right? Tiffany's dead. They don't go to her home. They don't search her cell phones. How can the police not search a dead girl's cell phones after a murder? Mm-hmm. I mean, it even says here in the police report. Okay, but anyways, back to Max's mother, Vanessa. She talked about how she wasn't getting any help from anybody and how she was getting disinformation. And I just tried to tell her what David Icke told me, which is never, ever forget who you are and never forget what you know, because the disinformation will try to push you in a direction you never thought possible. And Kathy O'Brien said the exact same thing. She said, you are vulnerable right now and you're going to be under attack. You need to zero in on who you are, what you believe yourself to be, and don't ever forget that. And that'll allow you to help push you forward. But, she's still working on the murder case. Like, it's a different angle, more like it's a death and a murder. I'm working on it more like Tiffany was mind controlled and walked to her death. And so they do have similarities, but more importantly is hers was a murder and mine was a mind control person sent to go under programming to go die and meet killers. And that's the key to this case. You see, because in Tiffany's case, if one single element, whether it be the therapist or the police if one single part of this case falls, the entire case will come out to the public.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
And John, as we prepare to wrap up, I want to ask you this because I'm sure as you talk to more people and more people are exposed to the case of Tiffany Jenks, I imagine that people are reaching out to you for help or advice. If someone's listening right now and they feel that maybe, they could be a mind control victim or someone they know, a family or a friend could be a mind control victim, can you give any advice to people that might find themselves in a position like that?
Well, I certainly believe there are millions of mind control victims across America, and a lot of them are tied to people within the government, people that have been raped, tortured, and abused as a child. Oftentimes, they will associate to a particular Disney movie, unfortunately, or, like in Tiffany's case, The Wizard of Oz. Each one of the victims I met and decoded while I was around them, like speaking about Drew and them, I found out specifically what movies they were programmed under. And so it's not safe to really go about telling people they're a mind control victim because in my experience, they will never, ever admit it. And so it's a very tricky game as to how you can help them. I think the biggest thing you can do is offer people the advice as to write down their experiences about their childhood as far back as they can remember, even the horrible, the torture and abuse they have received, and don't look for people that won't believe you, because that will just get you depressed. I think, and I for one am horrible because I didn't believe Tiffany. So my advice to you now is much different than it would have been back then. But now that I understand that this mind control is real, I think the goal for the general public needs to be to get the government to admit the program was real and tell us who they mind controlled. Because you can say sorry about a program all you want. If you don't tell us who you did it to, that's pointless. I want to know who you mind controlled. That's my goal. And so I want to know all the Americans who were tortured, given LSD. I want to know their names, right? I want you to know, did your mother get electric shock treatment because of the MKUltra program? I want you to know that. And so in terms of other victims that know or believe they may be, or have family members that may be, it's a slow, steady grind to the finish line. And it's a very painful one at best. And so it's very difficult to say how to help them.
Yeah, I don't think, that there is an easy way, but luckily I feel that there's a lot of helpful people out there that can look for more information. Speaking of more information, why don't you tell people one more time what websites they can visit to learn more about Tiffany Jenks and mind control and your fight for justice in her case? Yeah,
thank you. So my Facebook page, and I welcome people to friend me because I'm fighting the system. So it's John S. Captain on Facebook, just Captain like it sounds, and then Tiffany Jenks, Jenks Murder on Facebook. And then, as Genevieve said, the www.programtodie.com is just a list of different cases that you can learn about and study. And I think that's the primary way for people to begin to learn about mind control.
And we definitely urge people to visit those websites. And if you miss any part of this interview, we'll be posting this in the next day or two. You'll find it on our YouTube channel, where you will find our first interview with John, where we first discovered this case, and you can hear some of the recordings there as well as John's own YouTube channel, which you can find there doing a quick YouTube search. John, I think that in this quest for justice, I think that there is another subtitle to this story, and that is that I believe that there's also a story of a man being rudely awakened to this very grim reality that I think that for many, many, many years, people brushed under the carpet and treated as nothing more than science fiction in a way. So, we wish you all the best in your journey. And we look forward to having you again on the show with any more developments and information, and anything we can do to help to expedite justice in this case. We would be happy and honored to do so.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And thank you for all your listeners.
And that was John Captain. Once again, I want to thank him because this is not something easy to talk about. I think I said it before in our last interview, this is not someone that's trying to make money or, any of these things.
We're not speculating about some random conspiracy theory, but this is something that, hits a little close to home. And you're talking directly to someone who was affected by this, and you have to remember this is someone who lost a loved one.
And we definitely encourage everyone to visit these websites. Check out John Captain on Facebook. Adam, he's always posting, he's always active. If you have questions, he's really good. You can go straight to him, and you heard him here. He's happy to answer any and all questions. And
definitely.
All right, guys. Well, what can I say? We definitely kicked off the year here with some heavy stuff. Thank you for checking out the show. Once again, I'm Engineer Frank on Twitter, West of the Rockies on Facebook. Don't forget to follow the show on Twitter. I'm stumbling over my words again. At WOTR Radio, and check out the website, WOTRradio.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you like the interview, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. What do you think of this MKUltra mind control, Tiffany Jenks? And I was joined by Genevieve. You can find her on Twitter at GenevieveUA, and you can catch her here every Thursday night, new time, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific, hosting her very own show. No added flavors, music, fun facts, jokes, and a whole lot more. Till next week, guys. Take care. Be safe. Don't do anything too crazy. We want to see you back next week. Till then, bye-bye.
Bye.
West of the Rockies with Frank the Engineer on the Independent FM, Los Angeles.